When it comes to opening Deadlock for the first time, there's nothing quite like that overwhelming feeling of wow. There's an immediate realization that you're going to need to learn a lot. Even though I've got more than 350 hours in Deadlock now, I still find myself learning new things every single day. So whether you've only just downloaded and installed Deadlock today, or whether you've got a couple hundred hours in Deadlock like I do, this video aims to educate you on the fundamentals of Deadlock, covering the entirety of the game from beginning to end. My name is Drongo, this is your Deadlock, let's get to it. From a conceptual perspective, Deadlock is a combination of games. While I control my character the same way that you would in a shooter like Counter-Strike or Team Fortress 2, the objectives and strategy required for this game are a lot more similar to a MOBA like League of Legends or Dota 2. So when it comes to the fundamentals of Deadlock, there are fundamentals that you might be more familiar with if you've got an FPS background versus a MOBA background, and vice versa. In this video, we'll take a look at a game of Deadlock from the very beginning until the very end, and break apart each individual mechanic as we go. If we touch on something that you're already familiar with, feel free to skip ahead to the next chapter. In a game of Deadlock, the goal is simple: kill the enemy patron. To actually attack the enemy patron, we're going to need to go through lines of defenses. And the first line of defense you'll meet within the very first minute of the game. This here is the Tier 1 Guardian. Alright, so we're starting it off nice and basic. We want to go give this guy a high five. We're going to hit W on the keyboard. Standard WASD controls. We're going to hit spacebar to jump. Give him a nice little high five. In fact, you know what? We can hit him with a melee as well. Boom. There we go. He's got the high five now. That's your standard controls. You should be pretty familiar with WASD. We can also combine it with spacebar for jumping and control for crouching. You can combine these so we can look to move forward and at the same time crouch, and we can go down some stairs and we can get a nice little slide going in. This is a very basic movement technique that you'll be using throughout the game. It's important to note that as you do go down the stairs, as long as you slide, your movement speed will increase. So at the moment we're 6.5 meters per second, but when we slide down the stairs, even though it says 6.5 meters per second, it's actually quite a bit faster. So let's go back over to our tower because we're going to have to deal with these enemy troopers that are coming through soon. I'm thinking what we might do is zoom in on the enemy troopers with our right click and then left click them with our gun. And that way we should be able to do some damage to them and hopefully neutralize them, making sure that we missed it. We try and take out the soul as we go. Now, you might have noticed that while I was heading back from over on this position back to our good old friend here, Mr. T1 Guardian, I was doing some cool little magic tricks. Let me show you those. Now, normally when I'm playing Call of Duty, I like to run really fast. I hold shift on the keyboard. Oh, why does it do? This isn't Call of Duty, this is Deadlock. And I don't have the ability to sprint in Deadlock the same way that I do in Call of Duty. When I hit shift, it uses up my stamina. You'll see below where I'm aiming, my crosshair, there is some bars, 4 bars. That represents my ammunition. You can also see that at the 3 out of 18 mark, 2 out of 18, 1 out of 18. But just between those two, there are my stamina bars. And I can exhaust those in a number of different ways. Most commonly, you'll be doing that through dashing. When we press shift on the keyboard, that gives us this little dash, and our movement speed goes up, and that is actually reflected on the UI here. 6.5 meters per second, we go up to 15 meters per second for a brief moment. But you might think the best way to escape from an opponent is to just dash like crazy. I'm going to dash around this corner, I'm going to dash over here, and then I'm going to dash this way again, and then he's going to be so confused he's not going to know what hit him. But the truth is, we can actually get much more distance out of our dashes. What we're going to do is just dash and slide. We don't want to hold it for too long though, because as you will notice towards the end of the slide, it does peter out and we just kind of stand still. So we lose a lot of that momentum. So there becomes a real art to being able to slide and then dash around a corner and then make sure you get back on your feet quickly. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is the dash jump. Initially, I was apprehensive about this. I said that's a lot of stamina points that I'm using. I'm using 2 stamina points to do a dash jump. Why would I ever want to do that? And the truth is, because you can cover so much distance so damn quickly with this technique. So there is a sweet spot. When you dash, it lights up blue on your stamina bars. And we want to hit the spacebar right as it does that. If you go too early, you'll have a problem. If you go too late, you'll have a problem. It won't work. You get one opportunity. It is just like, what's that song? I've lost it. It's the Eminem song. You know the one. You know the one I'm thinking about. Lose yourself. You get one opportunity to do a dash jump, and that is it. If you nail it, congratulations. So how do you do it? Well, as I said, you just got to hit that timing on the blue bar. That's pretty much it. And of course, you can combo that out with a slide as well, which is really important on the end of things to just maintain that momentum. We can also do a little bit of a bunny hop as well, because we do maintain momentum when we're in the air. So as an example, let me show you. So we go shift, jump, and then what we do is we hold down control right as we hit the ground. We crouch for a brief second, and then we hit jump again. We can combo that with things like ramps. So let's go for it here. Let's see what we can work. Go down, and then we can do another jump like that. And then that way we kind of like extend the momentum out a little bit longer as well. So you can see how many complexities are starting to build here for even what appear to be basic mechanics. The next one is a bit more of a complex mechanic. This is something that you will use in your lanes once you get better. So I wouldn't expect you to be using this in your first game, probably not even in your 50th game. It might not come in. So essentially I might be hiding behind this point, right? And I want to go melee that guy. I can go like this. But you can see that I came up a little bit short. So what I needed to do was I needed to dash down. But you can see that when I do that dash, it's got quite a big animation in the sense that it's time consuming. So what I can do is I can actually cancel that dash. I can dash and then slide immediately. Dash and then slide immediately. Dash, then slide immediately. And that cancels the animation in the middle of that slide. And what that allows me to do is combo things. I can do a dash slide Q, or dash, hold on, I'm pressing the wrong buttons here. Dash slide Q, sorry, dash crouch, yeah, well, dash slide Q. And that allows me to cover a really large amount of ground quite quickly, and then still also have the ability to cast that animation. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about stamina usage. We've obviously covered those ones. You can also extend or expel your stamina through a spacebar, so a second use of the spacebar, so you can do a nice little double jump. And you can do this off the zip line as well, so you can jump and then jump again. But my favorite way to expend my usage, and it's going to be a little bit harder for me to do this because we're obviously in the laning phase right now, and there's no tower here. You can appreciate we're in a testing environment, so things are looking a little bit different. But one of the things I love to do is I love to jump up on the middle here. Now, the most common way that you'll do that is you'll just come up to this and you'll just double jump and you'll climb up. But what happens is you use your stamina. And stamina is pretty important, especially if you bite off more than you can chew. So sometimes you might jump up here and you'll start shooting, and then you'll realize, oh God, there's two of them and they're both shooting at me, and you'll want to get out. And so you might jump down here, but now you've just exposed yourself here. So one of the things I love to do, I'm going to do a little bit of showing off here. Let's climb up the right way. So we want to climb on top of our gargoyle friend and then jump across, and then we mantle. So that way we still have all of our stamina points, and hopefully we can do this the first time. There we go. Wasn't that beautiful? So we're doing a dash jump backwards off the top here, and this is something that once you get the hang of, it can create a huge amount of distance. The other thing that you can do is you can go dash jump and then jump again and slide. Of course, we always want to finish off with the slide. But you can see how far we got. We got all the way back to our guardian. We were standing on that tower, and that doesn't really give an opportunity for the enemy to hit back to us. So that's essentially it. Let's talk a little bit about sprint. We talked earlier about the fact that I want to press shift and I can't do it, so instead I'm using my stamina. Now let's talk about sprint. What is sprint? How does it work? Well, in Deadlock, different characters have different sprint speeds. So your movement speed at the moment is 6.5. Some characters will have 8, some characters will have 6. For us here on Dynamo, we've got 6.5. But let's say I want to run a little bit faster. I want to get some sprint speed going up. I'm just going to buy an item. I'm going to buy sprint boots. What that is going to do is give me 2 meters per second sprint speed. And that basically means whenever I am not taking damage, and whenever I am... it looks like I can actually shoot my gun, and I still maintain my sprint speed. Okay, there we go. So I've lost my sprint speed because the neutral... or the jungle camp has come, but give it a little bit of time, and there we go. We're back up to 8.5 meters a second. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is just climbing. So when it comes to climbing up things, there's a technique called a mantle. So basically the way that it works is when I jump across here, You can see that sometimes I'll get up, but sometimes I'll need to mantle. This doesn't use any form of any piece of your stamina. Normally, if you're going for a mantle, like you should be able to just go jump, and then you can just mantle up things. So you might be tempted to do like a double jump up here. That's going to use your stamina. You can use a mantle instead, but obviously it's a little bit slower. Takes a little bit longer. Now, the other mechanic, this was recently added, probably in the last couple of weeks, is the wall jump. It still requires a little bit of finessing. It's not something that's going to be particularly easy. But the good news is it doesn't use your stamina. So it looks like that. And it makes a sound. I'll shut up and you listen to the sound. You hear that sound? It's like boing. And I remember the first time I did it in a game, I was like, what the hell was that sound? It sounded like I kind of frog jumped. And, well, there is a frog right there. And so that doesn't use stamina, and you can use that in combos. So, like, you can come in and then do... I'm trying to think of, like, a combo that we could do. Like, shift and then jump over here and control, dash again, all the way down into... Poof! There we go. Look at that. Nice little cute combo for you. So, there's lots of different ways that you can utilize that stamina in the early game. All right, so we're back here in a brand new game. We've just restarted because our troopers went a little bit crazy in the last game. But we're here to talk about last hitting. This is an important mechanic that you'll be familiar with if you played Dota 2, if you played League of Legends. Essentially, what we want to do is we want to wait for this little trooper to get to this nice little flashing stage right here. And everyone's going to stop attacking him, and you're going to get an opportunity to last hit him. Now, you don't have to do that. You can just blast through if you want to and take that kill. But one of look... The truth is that the important part is the last hit. That's what really matters. You can take 90% of the health off the guy. If you don't get the last hit, it doesn't matter. It was all for nothing. When you get the last hit, you're going to get 50% of the health. Or, sorry, of the souls. And that 50% of the souls will get immediately thrown into your bank account. 50% of the souls are also going to go up into the air. Our opponent can deny that 50% soul from us. So it becomes very important for us to get that last 50%, which we need to confirm with a last hit. It's important to note that with your last hits, if you don't actually confirm the soul, you will still get 100% of that soul. However, there is the risk that it goes over to the enemy, so it is normally advisable to try your best to confirm those souls where possible. If you don't want to risk getting denied by your opponent, you can melee the creep. By meleeing the trooper, sorry. By meleeing the trooper, you're actually going to take 100% of the soul immediately. It's a pretty effective thing to do. The problem is that if you want to go for a melee, you do put yourself at risk. Come here, boy. And when I put myself at risk like that, obviously there's the risk that the tower attacks me, there's the risk that an enemy attacks me. So we have to be careful with melees. When it comes to melees, we'll talk quite a bit about melee and parry, but you can actually control your melee. Wah! You can turn yourself around, you can control yourself during the melee, and one of the things that you'll see, especially at the top level, is people faking each other out with the melee. So, as an example, one of the things that I'll do is I will see an opponent just around the corner, and we can just go foom, like that, and melee around that corner. So, that's essentially it when it comes to the troopers. So, the next thing that we'll be talking about is parrying. Parrying is a mechanic that allows you to block somebody's melee attack, and it subsequently stuns them. You can press F as the default. If you come into, I'll just quickly show you. So if you come into the Deadlock menu, go to Heroes and then click on the hero that you want to play. We're going to play Dynamo in this situation. And you come into the training ground, you can come over to this area, and there's a little guy who's quite angry. In fact, if you get too close to him, he's going to start trying to punch you. If you dare tempt him, he will punch you. And what this is designed to do is to help train your parry. So one of the things I love to do is come into here before I get into the games that I'm about to play for the day, and I'll just spend a couple minutes just sitting here. What I like to do, I'm not kidding you, turn around, close my eyes, and just listen. I've never been in a fist fight before. We just listen. That sound right there, let that sound become a part of your gameplay, because you will hear this sound. I remember the first time I did it. I heard that sound. I couldn't see the guy. I could just hear the sound, and my brain immediately defaulted to parry. And I knocked the guy down, killed him. It was like, I felt like I had become a true gamer. And, you know, that was a certified gamer moment. There was no heat. There was no, it was a good moment. Anyway, Parrying is incredibly important. One of the things to note is that when we do the parry, not only do we stun the opponent, there's also a debuff on them, which increases the amount of damage. So let's take a look and see what that, or like, what's an appropriate combo for you as an individual once you do get that parry off. So the enemy's going to come in, I'm going to parry, and when I do that parry, I'm going to immediately hold down Q on my keyboard, which is going to give me a heavy melee attack. And I'm going to follow that up with a left click. Oh gosh, I went a little bit early there. I'm going to follow it up with a left click. And sorry, we're standing too close to him at this point. I'm too focused. I'll follow it up with a left click and then another heavy attack. So it looks like this. Attack, 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 and then boom. So it's a whole bunch of damage that we just did to him. Now, one thing to note is if you miss your parry, like this, your parry is now on cooldown. So it's a 5-second cooldown from the moment that you click it. So you can see right there, we're still on cooldown 2 seconds, 1 second. So if you're in the lane, one of the things that you can do is you can bait out your enemy with a parry. It's a little bit more of an advanced technique because it relies on your opponent knowing how to parry. And then from there, like once your opponent knows how to parry, so you're probably talking about like maybe like around the silver or gold region on what is it? Is it track lock? I'm not sure which it is, but yeah, once people start learning how to parry, then that's the point where you can intentionally bait them. So I always kind of like test out my opponent in the laning phase. You just want to kind of throw out these melees, because if you do a melee attack and then do that, there's a good chance that they're going to do a parry in anticipation, and then so from there you can use that. There's a whole bunch of mind games that you can play, but essentially that's the combo that you want to be looking for once you learn how to parry. Is you wait for the melee to come in, hit the parry, you hit them with a melee, a couple shots, and that's essentially it. And you did just see there with so the dash can technically dodge the melee, but it's very, very hard to. You have to have quite a bit of distance between you and the melee attack. So even there, I tried to dash to the side. Here I'm too close. There we go. So we managed to dodge that one, but the majority of the time, you're probably not going to be able to dodge a melee with a dash. You might need to use a parry. One of the more advanced techniques that you can use with the parry is intercepting a melee attack that your opponent is intending to put onto a trooper. The way that it works is simple. One of your troopers is going to get low, and you'll see them preparing to take that trooper down with a melee attack. So what you'll do, you'll dive in, and then you'll hit a parry on top of that trooper. And the idea is that you want to intercept that. The way that the melee works is there's actually a cone behind your melee attack. So if there are more than one units in the same area, you'll be able to do a melee attack and you'll hit both of those units. So what you can do is come through on the backside. So maybe this one right here is low. We can dive in and then we can melee on top. But there is some recent tech that's actually come through. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do it for the first time, but I'll try my best. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a dash, and I'm going to be doing a parry at the exact same time. It's really difficult to pull this off, but if you can do it, it can be absolutely monstrous for your lane. So let's try and see. 3, 2, 1. Oh, no, we didn't. All right, we have to wait 5 seconds for it. I'll try again. It can. There we go, we got it. It can take a while to get it. I get it probably about 50% of the time at the moment, though we'll test those numbers. So that time we dashed into it, we dashed again. So you can see it's saying you're too busy to parry. So you quite literally have to hit it on the identical frame. So it's quite difficult for me to do, and I'm still obviously mastering it. There we go, we got it that time. And that way, what it means is that instead of dashing and then cancelling the dash and then parrying, we can just do it in one move. Because often you'll hear the enemy go for that melee and then you have to dash, cancel the dash, and then you have to parry at the same time. So it's like that. So it takes a little bit more control. One of the most important parts of the laning phase is the healing creep. This little guy right here, he looks different from everybody else. Most notably, there's a green line coming from his banner back towards me. And he's going to provide a heal every 6 seconds for 40 health. You can see him at the back there. We want to protect this guy at all costs, and a lot of your early game, once you start getting to higher levels, will revolve around denying the healing creep of the enemy and keeping yours alive for as long as you possibly can, because it means that you might be able to soak out an extra heal from him. Keep this in mind when you're pushing your lanes. Look for them early to try and deny them away from your enemy, and do your best to keep yours alive in the early game. They're very powerful, and the heal that they provide is absolutely free and significantly greater than any item that you can buy in the early game when it comes to comparative healing. So when you start a game of Deadlock, you're going to have the ability to choose one of your abilities. For us here, we'll take our first point, your first ability. And at 400 souls, you can see down here, so this tracks your souls, and it will tell you how long you've got until your next point. So if we actually start doing some last hitting, and you'll notice that this will start to decrease. It will get to the point where we reach our first level. If you want to find your levels, you can take a look under your hero page and then your specific hero, and then just hover over this little eye, and this will give you all the information that you need with regard to your specific hero. So on the UI, on the left-hand side, this refers to the purple points that you see are the skills. On the right-hand side is going to be the points that you can put into those skills. And then back again on the left-hand side, that is the power increases that you get for your character. So for Dynamo, as an example, we can see here, I wish I could mouse over it, but then we lose. He gets 0.71 base bullet damage, 0.27 base melee damage, and base health increase of 44. Each character is different. So as an example, if we go look at Great Talon is going to get only 27 base health, compared to Dynamo, who gets 44 base health for every power increase. So throughout the game, he's going to scale a lot more effectively when it comes to base health. Let's get back into the game. So one thing to note with regard to souls is that souls are your currency in the game, but they're also your experience in the game. So unlike League of Legends or Dota, when you're standing next to a creep or minion that expires, you'll get your XP, and only if you last hit it do you get the reward, the gold for it. When it comes to Deadlock, it's only the case that that's going to happen if you get the last hit, or if one of your allies nearby gets the last hit. During the first 10 minutes of the game, you and an ally will be able to share the souls that you're gaining from these creeps. So even though I'm getting 38 souls here, my ally is also going to be getting 38 souls. And if he left the lane, I would still be getting only 38 souls. If a third person comes to our lane before the 10-minute mark, that's the key here, the 10-minute mark is the key, then we would be sharing those souls with that third person, and it would mean that we would be getting less. Instead of getting 38 for each of these last hits, which obviously comes up to 75 with the last little bit of soul, that would be significantly diminished, probably around 50 instead. So it is it's a big problem if somebody comes to your lane. You don't want to have 3 people in a lane early. However, when it reaches the 10-minute mark, things change. When you get to 10 minutes, no longer is the soul 50% divided into the body and 50% divided into the floating little magic thing that you see. Instead, 100% is retained in that little soul. But in addition to that, not only does that mean that denying becomes very powerful, in addition to that, at the 10-minute mark, you begin sharing your souls with everybody. There's no such thing as just having that lane ally where you can share those souls. You're not able to do that anymore. And it means that farming lanes, so one of the things that will happen for me especially is I might be farming an outer lane and somebody will come and help me farm it. And, if you're at 11 minutes in the game, that's not efficient. Ideally, we don't want to be doing that. We don't want to be sharing souls with each other because we're standing in the same place and we're doing the same thing. And so that's a really important consideration to make. I guess the last point, as I mentioned earlier, is the fact that when you deny a soul after 10 minutes, you're getting 100% of that soul. So if your enemy is in lane against you, you should really look to try and prioritize souls where possible, or denying souls where possible, because it's going to give you the full amount of that soul, and it's essentially doubling your farm if you think about it that way. Let's talk a little bit about using the shop. So when you return back to base, you'll have access to the shop. We're not going to need to do that because we've actually got a shop right here. You can tell by that sound it's making. That nice little music, that nice little jingle. But you got to be careful when you're using the shop. You get sneaky people sometimes who know, hey, he's going back to buy, I might try and get some free shots on him. And that's very possible to do. So let's get in and take a look at the shop. As you'll see, it is overwhelming. There is a lot of items in here. I'm not going to go through these items with you in this video. My best advice to you regarding these items is to find a build for a hero that you like. And if I can just recommend a hero, I will say Dynamo. I think Dynamo is by far the best hero for new players. So if you're new to the game, maybe fresh install today, check out Dynamo and just go in and browse the builds. You don't have to find one that you like. You just got to find one that's popular, one that other people are into, and you just click that one and you just run with that, and you just buy the items and follow what they say. Buy left to right. You just come through and you just buy these as you're doing it, that sort of thing. It's going to take time for you to learn all the items. It's going to take time for you to become familiar with what they do and their interactions, because the complexities of the items in Deadlock are absolutely insane. Oh, wow. I wish I could put into words succinctly about how much I love it, but unfortunately I can't. Now, this isn't the only shop. There's actually other shops, so every lane has a shop, but it's important to note that when you lose this guy, when you lose this Guardian, you lose access to this shop. You won't be able to utilize it. So let's go visit another shop. I'm going to go down into the subway here, and we're going to go take a look at another shop. We actually purchased some extra stamina, so we can do a combination of things to get there quicker. But we're heading on the road to the secret shop. Now, I'm not going to show you where this is on the minimap at the moment, because my minimap is a different minimap to the one that you'll have in game. So instead, I'm just going to flash something up on the screen right now, which shows you where these are on the map. But the most common way that you'll access this is normally through this lane here in the middle. So for me, this is the green lane. Sometimes it's the blue lane. You'll come down here, and it will be in this secret little area. So it's the curiosity shop. So it's called the secret shop. Now, this one never closes. The other thing to note is your enemies can use this shop, and you can also use the enemies shop. So you do need to be careful, because sometimes you can have, how do we say, little metro rides at 2 a.m. in the morning. Well, yeah, it can get a little bit scary, but this one's normally a pretty reliable place to get your items at. So let's move on to our next point now, the T1 Guardian. So when it comes to the T1 Guardians, these guys are important. These guys will defend your lane. Most importantly, when you've got the T1 Guardian, you will have the ability to zipline all the way up to this point. Once you lose the T1 Guardian, it becomes a little bit more malleable. Now, we haven't spoken much about ziplines just yet. We will get into that further, but the T1 Guardians control a number of things. They obviously control the shops, which we've talked about. They control the zip lines that we've talked about, but they also control flex slots. You have the ability to have 4 flex items. So in addition to your 4 weapons, 4 vitality, and 4 spirit items, you also have the ability for 4 flex items. Now, to unlock each of those flex slots requires different things, but one of the things it requires is to destroy all enemy guardians. This guy right here is a guardian. There are 4 guardians across each of the 4 lanes. So once all 4 of these guys have been taken out by your enemy, they're going to have a flex slot. So you can see the importance of denying that from your opponent. Keeping these guys alive is important. There are exceptions to when you let these die. So as an example, if you're losing lane really badly, it can be a great idea to let this guy die and then just come back towards your walker and just farm safely here near your walker. And hopefully what happens then is if your enemy dares come up here, that will mean they've overextended and there's an opportunity for you or your team to gank them. Don't rely on that. The main thing is that you can just pretty much focus safely or farm safely underneath your walker. That's going to be the priority. Look, there's a couple of other niche circumstances as well, but the general rule of thumb is you want to keep this guy alive and you want to try and take out the enemy's walker. Now, one thing to note, that with the T1 Guardians, the souls that they expel affect the entire team. There's 4 of them. And it's really important that you confirm these souls, focusing on them more so than the souls from the minions below. So if there are competing souls, ignore these ones. Always go from the 4 from the Guardian because they affect the whole team. Each one is worth 38 souls, so times that by 6, and you've got almost 240, I think it's 230 souls that's going on. And if the enemy denies that, that's going to be a swing of 460. Between 450 and 500 souls. It's a huge swing, and you want to stop that from happening because with obviously 4 of them, that's a swing of up to 2,000 that can happen. So be sure to confirm your souls. Now, one thing to note is that the walker will actually take headshot damage. He will also have a shield on him, so you can only hit him from a certain range. So once we come up the stairs, we're able to now take shots at him. So he takes headshot damage, so 9 to the chest, 9 to the legs, 9 to the hands, but to the head he takes 18. And one of the other things that you can do is you can slide down these stairs. Now, something we haven't talked about is ammo, but if you take a look when we slide down these stairs, we get, well, that was a little bit of a slow slide, we get infinite ammo. And we can utilize that in a number of ways, but one of the most common ways you'll see is sliding down the stairs and at the same time firing at our guardian, or our enemy guardian. So that's one of the ways that you'll do it. So you can eventually get it to the point where you're firing and you're doing this. You're essentially enhancing the length of your clip or the size of your clip. With characters like Seven especially, or Yamato, what you can do is fire off your 3 shots at the top, and while you're sliding, you're firing, and then you come back up and then fire again, and essentially it gives you infinite ammo by doing this. So this is a technique. It's a little bit more advanced, so I wouldn't expect you to be using it in your first game, probably not even in your first 10 games. Sorry for hitting the mic right there. But that is a technique to be aware of. All right, next thing that we'll talk about are footsteps. When it comes to Deadlock, you've got a mini-map, but you don't really have the ability to see behind your character. And because of that, footsteps become a real big part of playing defensive in Deadlock, especially if you're in the jungle. It means that you can stay inside the jungle, or anywhere for that matter, and you can listen. This is why it's really important that you don't play without a headphone or without a headset. Can you imagine, playing Counter-Strike without a headset, not knowing where those footsteps are coming from? And Deadlock is exactly the same in that regard. So it's important to be aware of footsteps. Each character has got distinct individual footsteps. Some of them can be a little bit confusing. I remember I played against a Haze and I played against a Shiv in the same game, and I could hear the footsteps and I said, oh gosh, Haze is hunting for me. It wasn't Haze, it was a Shiv. Shiv's got some high heels on. So that's something to be aware of and to listen out for. And the best thing you can do is when you hear those footsteps, look at your minimap. If you don't see anybody around you, there's a really good chance those footsteps are coming from an enemy. Alright, so now we're going to talk about ziplines together with momentum. When it comes to ziplines, it's pretty simple. The Deadlock map is absolutely massive, so naturally you need a way to get around it a little bit quicker than walking, especially early on. So ziplines are the way that we do it. You'll be familiar with the zipline speed boost. For me, I've got it on mouse 5. You'll have it on whatever button your parry's on, so that might be F, which is the default. Be careful when you pop the speed boost, okay? This is an important boost, and ideally you should conserve it rather than using it. But I'll give you a couple of examples of when it's a good time to use the speed boost. All right, let's head down over towards our middle lane. Let's say that we're laning down here, and perhaps we're getting pushed right now. Maybe let's pretend the Guardian is still here. And we don't have a whole lot of resources in the bank. We've got items, but we don't have a lot of regen on us. So one of the things that we can do is we can jump up on the line, pop our speed boost, head all the way back to base. You can do this from the outer lanes as well. We're going to jump down a little bit early here, and we're going to heal up while we're in here. Maybe do a little bit of a buy if we can afford to, and then we're going to just jump back out. And that's a great opportunity for you to use your speed boost early. That is not a poor usage of your speed boost at all. So I would recommend that you would do that. One of the ways I wouldn't recommend you using a speed boost is if you're in one of the inner lanes and you die and you want to get back to lane quickly. I would advise against that. I would say that's probably a waste of a speed boost. There can be opportunities for it. As an example, maybe you're playing as Dynamo, and you're in a 2v2 lane right here, and your ally is getting pushed, and maybe they're both low. So maybe you can jump in and you can use your speed boost, and we can come off the line very, very quickly. So as an example, let's jump in. So pop that speed boost, and all of a sudden we're in. Maybe dash forward, do a little bit of a jump, and boom, there we go. And we just got ourselves a kill. So there's definitely opportunities for you to do it, but in general, I would say avoid using your speed boost unless you're in your lane. And this is at the early stages. Avoid using your speed boost unless you're in your lane. You haven't been able to buy healing right, which is one of the best items in the game, and naturally you need to go back to base to heal. Maybe you want to purchase some items as well. Maybe you've lost that early shop location, so that would be it. The other thing to note is that when it comes to Deadlock, there's an interesting concept called momentum, and the way that it works. So in Deadlock, you will carry momentum with you. So if we jump off this line right now, we will hold the momentum of the speed of that line. So when we're traveling on this line, we're doing 21 meters a second. So we will maintain that as we come off the line. However, one of the things that you've got in Deadlock is air friction. So as I move through the air, let's see if we can go fast here. So as I move through the air, my character is going to be going slower and slower as the air particles conflict with its body. Not conflict, but rub up against its body is probably the best way to say it. There's a weird bug where, I don't know if it's a bug or if it's intentional, but it seems to be a mechanic of the game, where if you crouch off the zip line, or I think it's in general, you don't have that air friction. Oh, that was not what I wanted to do. You don't have that air friction for 2 seconds after doing it. And you can start to get some really, really stupid combos going where, let me show you. So I don't know exactly where this lane or where this zip line is ending, but one of the things I love to do is come along here. Unfortunately, it ended right at the worst spot, right where our Guardian is. So we've got our zipline speed boost. And so what we can do is we can come around the corner like this, hit control, and we can absolutely fly off. We can combo it with a nice little wall jump as well, but you can see how far you can get off the zip line just by doing that. So learning to use the zip line and learning to use crouch as a way to carry your momentum forward. So that would not be possible if we didn't use the crouch, because the air friction would be too great. In general, the best usage of your zipline is going to be in the early game when you've got low health and you need to get back to base. Also, it's a great opportunity if you're pushing side lanes like this. So you can pop your zipline. You need to get back to base in a jiffy. Maybe you need to defend another lane, or maybe you want to go push another lane. So just pop your zipline, look to reposition, and head out on your new one, and that way you've got a little bit of a speed boost. You can also use it to obviously initiate fights, especially with a hero like Dynamo, who I sometimes call Ultimo just because of how powerful his ulti is. Oh, we don't actually, we can unlock it through here. I'll just go max level. So what you can do is if an enemy team is pushing and they're coming up, you're just going to hit control, shift, and then ulti. And that's a nice little way that you can initiate into the fight, get in a little bit easier with that movement. And you know, people aren't going to be aware that you're coming through when you've got that sort of movement speed. It's just way too quick. There's no real way to deny it. So that's always something to consider. All right, let's move on to our next point, which is going to be jungle camps. Okay, so it's jungle time. One of my favorite places to be. I feel quite familiar with where we currently are. Let's talk about the different levels of jungle camps. This right here is a basic jungle camp. Nice and easy to take. We're going to absolutely demolish this one with our gun. It's going to give us a nice small amount of souls. Next up, we've got our level 2 camp. This one a little bit harder to take. Might need a little bit of help from our skills to take this one out. Now keep in mind, I've given myself a couple of little extra items. Okay, so that's our level 2. Now, these spawn at different times. So this one here spawns at 2 minutes into the game. So if you were to run here at 1:55 and stand here and wait, these little guys would be happily coming to spawn in at 2 minutes, and they could meet you, and you can greet them. When it comes to these guys over here, these guys are 7 minutes into the game. So these 1, 2, 3, these guys are 7 minutes into the game. Now, this is a level 2 camp, but if we go downstairs here into the basement, you'll actually see that this is an extra big family that we've got here. We've got 1, 2 little guys, 3 little guys, 4 little guys, 5 little guys, and 2 baby mamas, or two baby mamas. As my son would say, we've got the baby alien and the mummy alien. These guys are extra special, but essentially, look, it's the same deal. It's just that there's more of them down here. They also spawn at 7 minutes. Across the way, we've got more. It's just the same. These 3, just a different formation as the ones over on this side. And then we've got another basic camp here. So let's head back a little bit further and take a look at our more advanced camps. So these are the tier 3 camps. These are the hardest jungle camps in the game to take. So these guys are a lot more difficult to deal with. Now, these guys also spawn at the 7-minute mark. But it's important to note that with these guys, their respawn timer is a little bit longer. So for the small creeps that we looked at in the beginning, they respawn every 4 minutes. So these guys here, if you kill them at 2 minutes, they'll come back at 6-minute mark. Over here, these guys, they're a little bit longer. They're 6 minutes. If I remember correctly, I might be wrong on this one, but these guys are 6 minutes. The guys that we just saw at the back there, those are 7 minutes. Now, the 10-minute mark is important. It's signified by that sound. But what that means is not just that mid-boss has arrived. It also means that it's time to go and gamble, baby. Oh, yeah. These are my favorite right here. These are incredible. So what I love to do is when I come here is you shoot this guy, and at the same time, you melee these bad boys. All right? And every time you melee these are going to give you souls. We shoot that guy, so that guy's dead now. So we're going to get all of these souls. Now, it doesn't actually tell you the value because at the moment we've got infinite values on, but I'll flash up something on the screen at the moment which will indicate to you all the beautiful numbers of how many souls these are in each of the camps, in fact. Yeah, we want to make sure that we clear these out. Just keep in mind that when we actually melee these, we do cop a little bit of damage, so you need to be cautious with these, but these are very high value. So these respawn at 10 minutes, and then after that, they will respawn every 5 minutes when you take them out. So really, really nice to hit. Of course, we're not going to touch all the jungle camps today. We're just going to be talking about the sort of different levels and different categories that you've got here. There are a lot of jungle camps across the map, but one of the things that will happen with your jungle camp is that you will get what are called unsecured souls. So every time you kill a jungle creep camp, you're going to get a portion of that, which is unsecured souls. The portion, 100%. Every single bit of that soul is going into your back pocket quite physically. Now, you can't actually see it at the moment on Dynamo because my soul count isn't the highest, but as it gets higher and higher, my soul count is... my unsecured souls, I should state here, my bag is going to get bigger. You're going to see that I have a little sack on my back, and it is getting bigger. It's still being hidden, but it is in there. And if I were to die, this soul, these unsecured souls would quite literally drop. So how do we stop that from happening? Well, the first thing is that over time, these unsecured souls will become secured. So as I'm running throughout the game, this is going to slowly come down. You can see that it's coming down at about 4 every single second at the moment. I don't know what the calculation for it is, but I think the way that it works is as you kill a jungle camp or like a jungle creep, it calculates what your current soul count is and then divides that by 100, and then that is how many souls you're losing every second. So as an example, if I've got like 800 unsecured souls and I kill a jungle camp and now I've got 1100, it calculates that and says, okay, now you're losing 11 per second. Or I should say now you're securing 11 per second. So one of the interesting things about souls and unsecured souls that they always sit at the bottom of your pile when you come to the curiosity shop. So even if, let's say you've got 10,000 unsecured souls that you went out on the map and you know, you killed all the jungle camps and then you came back and farmed 5,000 troopers, if you buy an item for 3,000 souls, 100% of that will go from the secured souls, not from the unsecured. With the unsecured souls, you can't, or you can buy items, but it's always the last souls that will be used. So one of the things that you can do, so in this situation, as an example, if I want to use my unsecured souls, I can buy a 1250 item, and I can buy a 500 item. I've got 55 unsecured souls, I'll buy that one, and that now takes me down to 33, because at the time that I bought it, I had 37 souls left, and then it trickled 4, and now you can see we're down to 0 souls. So one of the things that you can do is to minimize the risk that you have with unsecured souls, if you've been out doing a big farm, is making sure you have as close to your buy as possible, or at least as close to the items that you can buy as possible. So it can take a little bit of math there, but knowing, okay, let's say if I'm saving up for a magic carpet, which is 6,200, I would make sure that I have, you know, I could have up to 2,000 unsecured souls. I would go back to base with 6,200 exactly and try and buy my magic carpet, and that's going to use up all of my unsecured souls immediately. If I came back with 8,000, then it would leave me with 1,800 unsecured souls, which I could potentially lose in the event I die. So that's how unsecured souls work. I hope that makes sense. 10 minutes into the game, this little guy is going to spawn. This is called the urn. And it's essentially like capture the flag, except instead of taking it from your enemy's base, you're taking it from one side of the map over to the other. When you pick up the urn after standing on it for a little bit, it talks to you. It's got a mind of its own. It will disarm you. So I can't fire my gun right now. I can't use any of my abilities, but what I can do is I can punch. I can melee. That's it. I can also use my my stamina. So if I want to do a little bit of a jump dash, I can do that. But I'm not going to be able to fight here. In the event that I get into a fight, I can always drop my urn, throw it over here. However, if I do that, he's going to start making his way back to where he came from. You can hear that he's really got a mind of his own. So the 3,500 on it that you see represents how many resources or how many souls are going to be given to your team when you hand this in. So this is obviously This is obviously a lot of souls, right? 3,500 over 6 team members. You're talking more than 600 souls for each team member. That's a lot of souls. So this guy has decided, or he did decide to just stay in place. So he was feeling quite nice for us today, but we'll take him in. We'll hand it in. It's going to give us a ludicrous amount of souls because we're the only person on the team, and it'll also bubble up these little guys. We want to make sure we kill these guys. These are really important. It gives us a lot of souls here. So you can see that was 4,900 souls. Now, normally those will be shared amongst your team. So you need to be careful when you do hand in the urn to do a big melee attack or to do some little melee attacks and actually kill those souls. Because the enemy can deny it. Maybe if the enemy's standing over here, they'll be able to shoot and deny them or potentially lock you down. You also need to be careful when you are running the urn of the enemy, because one of the things they love to do is they love to camp around this area. You'll see bebops that sometimes stand up on this roof, and the moment that they see you handing in the urn, because it takes about a second or two for you to hand in, they'll hook you, kill you, take your urn, and hand it in for themselves. So you need to be really, really cautious about handing in the urn. Another thing to note is that the urn will respawn, even if the urn is still up. So let's say you haven't taken it, you're at the 14-minute mark right now, and the urn is still sitting. The urn will respawn, and it will actually swap sides sometimes. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know exactly what the mechanic for it is. I guess it's probably just random. So sometimes it will swap sides, sometimes it won't. But there have been times where I have seen the urn on the map. I've run over towards the urn with anticipation of picking it up, and by the time that I've got there, it had actually swapped to the other side because it had hit that 15-minute threshold. So it will spawn every 5 minutes. So we want to try and aim to drop it off, and it can be a huge part of why teams that are ahead get further ahead, because with the urn, so you can see it's now spawned on the other side, so we can go on and pick that up. It's going to be 30 seconds before it drops down. So at the moment, it'll be up in the sky, and then we'll be able to go and pick it up. But it's a huge reason as to why teams that have got map control that are ahead. So normally if you're ahead, you're able to kill your opponent. You have got control of the map. And when you've got control of the map, you're able to run the urn safely, and that's just going to push you further ahead. Because, you know, the last urn that we did, it was 3,500 souls. That was split between the team, so you're talking about everybody getting roughly, 700, a little bit under 700 souls each. As the game grows longer, the urn grows stronger. This one is now 4,500 souls, and you can appreciate why this is so important, because if you're doing these urn runs every 5 minutes, this is a huge amount of resources that your team is getting that your opponent isn't doing. We spoke earlier about the Tier 1 Guardian, who normally sits right here. Now it's time for us to move on to the Tier 2 Walker. This guy's a little bit different. He's got more skills, more health, and he's a lot more angry than the normal T1 Guardian. So we need to be really careful of this guy. Now, he's important for a number of reasons. He's important to defend. He's also very important for us to take out. And one of those reasons is because he unlocks a flex slot. When we take out 2 walkers, it doesn't matter where they are on the map. It doesn't matter which lanes they're in. All that matters is we take out 2 of them, then we're going to unlock a flex slot, and that's going to give us the ability to have 1 extra item. Also, when we kill all 4 of the walkers, we will be able to have a 3rd flex slot. So you get your first one for killing all 4 Tier 1 Guardians, then your 2nd flex slot for killing 2 Tier 2 walkers, and then your 3rd flex slot is for killing all 4 Tier 2 walkers. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we push our lanes. We want to make sure that we use all of our abilities to kill all the troopers. And we want to go take that walker. But there's something really important that we need to be observant of when we kill these walkers. Just like the walker, or just like the troopers, walkers have souls. And when you kill them, the soul will rise up into the air, and it will take a lot longer than your normal soul, like these ones. They probably take about double the amount of time to pop. But we need to be really careful about it, because if we're not careful, the enemy can deny these. And these souls are incredibly important, because these souls give souls to every person on your team. So what we witnessed right there was a whole bunch of 38s and a whole bunch of 39s. Times each one of those by 6. So each one of those is representative of about 240 souls. If that gets denied, that's a swing of 480 souls, because that 240 is no longer in your hands, instead it's in your enemy's hands. And how many souls was that? It was a huge amount of souls. I don't actually know the number, but I know the swing is generally around 7,000 souls. One of the big problems that I see with new players is they'll push walkers and they'll run away straight away. And sure, you know, congratulations, you got the walker, you got the you got the flex slot. But guess what? You just gave your enemy 3,500 souls, and you could have taken it for yourself. Now, granted, you probably couldn't have taken it for yourself, but look, the point is, you need to do your best after you've taken that walker to actually confirm those souls. There's definitely going to be a trade-off as to, you know, when you should commit versus when you shouldn't commit, but general rule of thumb is if you've killed the walker, try and stick around to kill the souls. They are really, really important, and we want to avoid at all costs those souls getting denied. Let's move on to the next point, which is going to be the veils. Now, veils are a bit of a weird mechanic, and that's part of the reason why I've left it towards the bottom side of this video. Veils exist around the map. There's a couple of them positioned in weird and wacky places, and they're two-sided, which means that on one side, you can see through. I can see through this veil right now. If someone was to walk past, I'd be able to see them perfectly. Yet on this side, I can't see through. I don't know what's happening on the other side of this veil. And this is important because these aren't the only veils that you'll see around the map. There are quite a lot of veils. There are items that we can buy that can take advantage of those veils, but the most important veils are the ones that you'll actually see in the laning phase. Can you spot them? Do you see where they are? They're over here. So what you can do is during the laning phase, and every single lane's got them, you can jump in these veils and you can sit out here poking your enemy down, and they can't do anything to respond. Now, granted, look, if I'm a dynamo and someone's shooting me from here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come up like this, and I'm going to, boom, get out of there, buddy. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to do a melee attack. I'm going to be real angry at him. So you got to be prepared if you take advantage of the veils in that way. But the veils exist. They're one of those mechanics that are definitely underused in the game. There's a couple of interesting interactions that we've got. Oh, are we about to win the game? Look at my troopers. I think I'm about to win the game, boys. So one of the items that you can purchase is an item called Veil Walker. And essentially, you only really get this on a couple of heroes. One of the most popular ones is Warden. And essentially what you're doing is you're grabbing that Veil or Veil Walker right here. And every time you walk through this, it's going to send you invisible. But that's not really the main reason why people get it. The main reason people get it is because they like to stack up a lot of shields. So you'll grab like Combat Barrier, which gives you a 325 shield, Enchanter's Barrier, which gives you a 300 shield. And when they get depleted, it takes a long time for them to actually come back. However, if you walk through the Veil with Veil Walker, it instantly recharges those shields to max. So there's definitely some nice combos that you can do with items and the Veils. The other example is like, let's say we want to go and gank this lane over here. I can see this way. Keep in mind that these lanes are a lot shorter than what you'll be playing in your normal matches. So it's not going to be this quick and easy to gank a lane, but you can come through the Veil, and now you're invisible, your shields have recharged, and you can just blow your everything all over the opponent. So that is one of the lesser used mechanics of the game. Okay, so next up we've got the special buffs. So the special buffs spawn at the 10-minute mark in the game, and then they spawn every 5 minutes after. There's 4 different buffs that you can get. The first one is Gun, and this will give you some ammo as well as some fire rate. It allows you to shoot, so obviously with fire rate you're going to shoot faster, and with ammo you're going to have a larger clip size. So this would be important for a hero like Haze. It would be important for a hero that relies on its gun to do damage. Whereas there is another buff that you can get, so that's the first one. These buffs last for 2 minutes, by the way. They're very powerful, so they are hotly contested at high ELO. Oh gosh, are we actually? I think we might be killing them. Next buff that we've got is Survival. This is probably the best buff, I would say. On 7, I like Movement, but Survival is probably just the all-round best one. Oh gosh, hold on a minute. Give me a second here. Okay, we're back. So we pick up the Survival buff, and it gives us 1% max health regen, which scales into the late game incredibly. So here, if we take a little bit of damage, keep in mind we've also got that plus 400 health, but you can see just how much healing that's actually managing to do on us. And you get a couple of items as well, and you're just going to be absolutely crazy with your healing. So another cool buff. When it comes to the other buffs, so let's pick up these ones. So we've got Survival, we've got Gun. So you've also got Casting, which is going to give you Spirit Power as well as cooldown reduction. So Spirit Power, we haven't spoken about in this video, but essentially that's going to scale the damage on abilities. It doesn't always affect, or I shouldn't say scale damage, it scales a lot of different things. So here is an example. Our Spirit Power scales with our stomp range. So the more Spirit Power we have, the more stomp range we have. So at the moment, when I cast my stomp, it's, sorry, wrong button, here we go. It's 15 meters. But let's say I wanted to get myself a little bit of extra stomping power. Let's put no cooldown on. Then I can stomp a little bit further because the Spirit Power is scaling with the length of my my first ability. And each ability is different, each character is different. Some characters scale very well with Spirit Power, some characters don't. And it will depend on your character as to whether it's good or not. So here you can see Quantum Entanglement doesn't affect anything. Here for Rejuvenating Aurora, it affects the health that we're restoring, and for the Ultimate, the Singularity, it increases the DPS that we've got, so the damage per second that's being done. And this is signified by the fact that it's got that purple outline as well as the purple star next to it. So the casting buff is powerful for casters, yeah, there's going to be heroes that like it and heroes that don't. Okay, and then we've got finally movement. So +2 stamina, plus 30% movement speed, I think it was. We get zipline speed out of this. The big one is the stamina, as well as just the base movement speed. So we're just running a lot faster. And the extra stamina is really nice. We can double check. I'm pretty sure it also... does it also give faster stamina regen? Let's see if we pick up the buff again. I don't know if it tells us the bonuses that we get, because we've already got them. Hold on, maybe let's just kill our hero. Okay, we've got the movement buff right there. Let's grab it. Oi! No. No, it's gone. Don't worry, it'll come back. There we go. So we get 2 stamina, sprint speed, stamina regen, and zipline speed. So we do get that stamina regen. So it's like you're getting that superior stamina, basically. You're obviously missing the dash length and whatnot, but this is a really nice buff to be able to pick up. All of the buffs are just incredibly good. Obviously, some heroes better than others, but you also get that zipline speed as well, so it's going to zip you faster around the map, and of course that stacks with the zipline speed boost. So if you're going really, really, really fast like I am right now, and then you use control to get off, you can dash through the air and go crazy with your crouch for some absolutely sick momentum and slides. Yeah, those are the buffs. So let's move on to the next thing, which is going to be the T3 base Guardians. Okay, so we've made our way through the T1 Guardians, we've made our way up to the Walkers, and now finally we're at the main base where the T3 Guardians await us. The good news is, if you're attacking, these guys are an absolute pushover. The bad news, if you're defending, these guys are an absolute pushover. These guys don't really represent much of a threat to anybody that comes near them. So don't be too scared of them. They go down very, very quickly throughout the game. They don't do very much damage, and they don't offer any rewards for killing them. So if anything, these are a formality. Essentially the reason why they exist is so that you're not able to just come through and start killing the shrine straight away, because you're not able to do that until at least one lane of the Guardians or the base Guardians is down. Then you can actually go in and start attacking the shrine. But other than that, other than serving as a basic formality, they don't offer you anything in the way of flex slots, anything in the way of usefulness, and simply just offer you the ability to go into the lanes. They did used to offer you something, but the devs have removed that. And you might be wondering what that was. It was actually incredibly powerful. Essentially, your minions or your troopers in a lane give you a specific amount of souls. So if we kill this trooper right here, we got 76 souls. What used to happen was when these troopers, when these base Guardians died in the respective lane, it would halve the amount of souls the enemy would get from the troopers. So if you lost these Guardians, it would mean that any troopers that are coming through in this lane, you would only get half the souls from. But this was published on Reddit, and then within about 3 days it was changed. So I think it might have been a leftover mechanic that they just kind of forgotten about. So keep an eye on it, it might come back. All right, next up, it is the one, the only, mid-boss. So mid-boss has arrived. He arrives at the 10-minute mark, and you can see that he's currently out of range. God, he's ugly, isn't he? He's not a pretty-looking fella. So he's arrived. He comes in at 10 minutes, and then after he's taken out, I don't actually know what the respawn timer is on him, but it feels like it's quite a... Gosh, he's not pretty. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about mid-boss, about the way that he works. So he's got a shield on him. So obviously, I can't do damage to him at the moment. But if I was to jump into the pit, now I don't have a lot of items, so I'm not going to do that. The first component of this is the orange part, which is like a damage check. Basically, this is a shield that continues to build, and you can only take this shield out if you've got enough damage, or DPS is probably the best way to say it, damage per second. So once you're able to get that shield down, then you can actually start damaging the green health, or the teal health that we can see there. To actually do that, I'd need to jump down here on this platform. There's a couple of different ways in. The most common way you'll probably be familiar with is through this door. The next common way that you'll see is up through the top here, which is where you jump through. So often you'll have people like, oh gosh, look at that from the top. I don't want to go down there. You've got Lash that loves to come up here and drop down, or Abrams that will come down, or maybe you've seen Seven come here and do an ultimate out there. There's another way in as well that is a little bit less known, and it's a great little juke spot that you can also get into the habit of using if you manage to spend some time in the middle lanes, and it's done through here. So this is the standard spot, right? Like you come in and you're running around. There's a cheeky little hole right here, and it's quite a bit, like quite a ways down here as well. So you can use your skills to, like, you can use your stamina to do the double crouch. I don't actually think we covered that in this video. If you want to come up here, you can probably do a wall jump into a punch to get up here as well. Yeah, essentially it's a one-way down. So once you go down, and once you go through this area, there's no coming back. So the moment you step over that line, you're going in to meet mid-boss. So you got to very much be careful about making the decision to do it, but it's a cute little juke spot. So that's another thing, but that's another way that you can get into the pit. But just be very careful, because there's no getting back up in there. It is, look, I'm sure it's probably possible, but like it's not really. Not really. Maybe you need like Warpstone or something like that. So that's the other thing. Now, the most important reason why mid-boss exists is because of the Rejuvenator. When you take mid-boss out, it's going to look a little something like this. You'll hear this beautiful music coming down as the Rejuvenator arrives from the heavens, and it's your obligation as a member of the team to parry. Right as the Rejuvenator hits the bottom of the ground, it all of a sudden comes into play. And the way that you secure it is with a heavy melee attack. That's not through a quick melee attack, a light melee attack like that. It's through a nice big heavy one. And what you can do is, for your team, they probably know to hit it, but they don't know to parry it. So you want to parry it right as it's about to hit the ground. So that's my tip to you. But look, to be fair, if this is probably your first game, it's probably just better to just do the melee attack on the Rejuvenator. Now, the one that I'm attacking at the moment is just in the sandbox. You can come in here and you can attack it anytime you like. I don't mind. But yeah, it's a nice little part of the sandbox that you can use to try and time your punches, because if you go too early, it doesn't work. And if you go too late, well, there's no Rejuvenator anymore. It's gone to a better place. The enemy team has stolen it. Now, once the Rejuvenator actually gets taken, things change. So your respawn timer is shortened. You get a 50% respawn timer reduction, which is pretty significant. It means that you can go and take a fight with the enemy team, and if you die, well, no harm, no foul. It also increases the strength of your troopers. So all 4 lanes will have significantly increased strength on your troopers for the next, I think it's about 3 minutes, which is the same length that the Rejuvenator lasts for. This little buff, you can see it at the top of my screen here, up underneath my picture, is the Rejuvenator buff. That signifies, I've also got it here on my health bar, that signifies that I've got the Rejuvenator active, and that if I was to die, so let's make myself max health, and if I was to die, I think already I have a very short respawn time because I'm in the training mode, but that's what it does. And then it also just, as I said, makes our troopers much stronger. So it means that all your lanes are going to start to push. So I don't know whether that had happened already with these troopers, but they do look a bit beefy, and they will physically look, or visibly look, stronger, or not stronger, I shouldn't say that. You know, they're not walking around with abs and six-packs and all that. The abs and six-packs are the same, Drongo. They're not walking around with, you know, with the guns. You know, they don't have licenses for these two bad boys. It is very much just, they're physically larger. That's it. All right, next up, we're going to be talking about teleporters. On the map, there are 6 teleporters. Before 10 minutes, these teleporters are closed. But at 10 minutes, a lot happens. The buffs spawn, the urn spawns, mid-boss comes, and the teleporters open. The first one that we're going to be looking at takes you... Thank you, Dynamo. The first one takes you from one side of the map over to the other side of the map and back. There's no cooldown on it. Takes about 5 seconds once you jump inside. You can take damage while inside the teleporter, and you will still be teleporting. So keep that in mind. I don't know whether if you get stunned, it stops you from teleporting. I actually haven't checked that one. But this is the most common teleport that you're going to be using throughout your games typically. The other ones are a little bit more advanced. Let's go take a look at them. So the next teleport that we've got here is quite a nice one that I like to use when I'm farming. So it's going to take me from the underground camp. So if you know where that is, so we've got our standard camp here, our 3-setter. In here we've got 3 more of the tier 2 camps, and down here we've got the basement, which has got the small guys or the baby ones and the mama ones. Here we've got the teleporter, so we can jump in this teleporter, and this is going to take us over to the tier 3 neutrals on our safe side, or on our opposite side. It's a weird spot because it's like a really, really good teleporter spot, but no one ever really utilizes this teleporter. So this is a really, really nice teleporter to use, especially if you're farming the jungle a lot. It's definitely one of my favorites to use. I don't really use it too much for ganking. It's more just mobility, right? Like if I see I've got a jungle camp up over on the left side of the map and I've just taken this one, I'll jump in the teleporter, and, you know, 5 seconds and voila, I'm over there and I'm able to go farm basement. You know, I can come straight out here, go down farm basement, or if the slot machines are open, I'll make sure I go up there. Now, the last teleporters that we're going to be looking at in this map that I'm playing, so the map that I'm on, for whatever reason, the devs Valve, they didn't update this map, which is the test map that I've got, so it's not using the new configuration yet, but the idea is still the same. There's a room here, so you can come in off the purple lane into the teleporter. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can go into this. It's much bigger now, or get away from me, but essentially there is a teleporter downstairs which is going to take you to the enemy side of the map. You can see on the mini map it is flashing when we go near to the teleporter. So this is a bit of a weird one. I don't use this one a whole lot, but I can anticipate this would be used by heroes that like to gank a lot in the early phases of the game. So a hero like Lash, as an example, could utilize this quite effectively, maybe going from the purple lane and soloing it, and then maybe looking for a gank to yellow here. Or you can go to green through this side. And it gives you a pretty good position here, right? Like if you're playing from the enemy's side and you can come out here and, you know, there's going to be people that are right here that you'll be able to take out. So that's something to keep in mind with regard to the teleporters. But other than that, there's not too much for them. It's mainly, at least the way that I use them, it's efficiency, getting across from one side of the map to the other. I wouldn't recommend, if you're running away from somebody, like let's say that you come down here, I would not recommend that you try and hide in the teleporter or that you try and escape with the teleporter. I have died in the teleporters before. Not really. It doesn't seem to work. People do know about them. They do know that they exist, and they will follow you and kill you. So don't try and do that. It's probably best to... I don't know if you could get it to work in a juke spot, but probably best just to try and find your way out another way. All right, let's move on to the next point, which is going to be bounce pads as well as ropes. Part of the reason why I've left this so late in the video is just because they're pretty self-explanatory and they don't really have too much to do in the way of gameplay. So the first one is your bounce pad, which is going to take you in a specific direction. These can be really helpful around the map. There is a couple of them that just help out with the juking. They're especially good, and if you know how to use them, they can be quite powerful for ganking. There's one in particular on the green-blue lane that is very strong. And then, of course, you've got the ropes. Now, it's important to note that with the ropes, you don't have to go all the way up. You can just kind of chill here. You can shoot on the ropes, and you can come down. But the most common thing that you're going to be doing is looking to juke on these, so coming around, jumping up a rope, getting to the top, and then you can do a roll off the edge, like that. That's always a nice little juke that you can do. One of the other things to note is that typically ropes are going to take you to rooftops, and on those rooftops there are going to be vases, there are going to be boxes, and that is what our next point that we're going to be talking about, vases and boxes. And look, to be honest, probably shouldn't have left it till so late in the video. They're a pretty important part of Deadlock. Once you get to a high level, like, you're checking these very, very often, all the time. But if you're just starting, if you're a beginner, it's important that you pretty much forget about these, right? They're not going to be a huge component of your game. I wouldn't go out of the way to actually get these. So basically, you've got boxes that spawn around the map, and inside those boxes, there's a chance that there will be souls. Now, those souls scale with the length of the game, the same way that your troopers do. Inside, and obviously you can walk over the top of them, and it's going to give you unsecured souls. The same way that jungle creeps would do it. When it comes to statues, so we've got statues and we've also got vases. So there's some more statues there. Where are our vases, I think? No, we've got more statues here. I think statues and vases do the same thing. And they give different bonuses. So here we've got ammunition. We might be lucky and get, we've got a health one over here. So this is going to give you 15 max health, 4% ammo as well. And if we compare these to items, right, like 4% health or 4% max ammo, let's look at basic magazine. It gives 24% ammo. Right? Like, so realistically, the value that you're getting from 4% ammo is not that big. But one thing is true, and that is that it scales and it stacks, and it doesn't take an item slot. That's the other thing to note, is we're not losing any item slots from these. So, we can collect a lot of these over the game, and that, what was it? I think 4% ammo, or here as an example, we got 1.5% fire rate. These can stack up, and as an example, like, I love picking up the cooldown reduction ones as 7 because it reduces the cooldown on my power surge, my lightning. So if you get a lot of those over the course of a game, you're going to be reducing your spell cooldowns by a significant amount. By the same token, you're picking up the bonus health that lasts you the entirety of the game. So that's important. Here we get 2 spirit power and 3% weapon damage. So some more. And we've got some health. So these are important, and these will be littered around the map in your lanes. They'll be littered on top of buildings, at the bottoms of buildings. So if you do see them, you can obviously just shoot them. You can roll over them if you're going fast enough while you're crouching. Let's see if we can get that one as well. So you can crouch through them. If you're jumping off something, we'll have to get the landing perfectly, but you can technically crush them as well. I don't think we're going to be able to get that landing. It's, here we go. I think we missed, didn't we? Yeah, I found that to crush them, there we go, we got it. You got to land right on top of them. You got to have a little bit of body weight in you. Let's see, maybe a double jump will get the height for it. There we go. Yeah, double jump did it. So it's a specific height. They've got a break amount. We can see that. Anyway, let's move on to our next point, which is going to be our T4 shrines. So these are our shrines. We've got 2 of them. We've got one that's on the right side of the map. We've got one that is on the left side of the map over here. And we need to defend these at all costs. These are really important because once we've lost these shrines, that means our patron is going to be exposed. And once the enemy has taken out a single shrine, that will unlock a flex slot for them. So we can see right here, unlocked after your team destroys an enemy shrine. By the same token, your enemy obviously can unlock a flex slot. And we want to avoid them unlocking that flex slot because it just makes them feel a little bit more awkward. But importantly, we want to just avoid doing that at all costs. So we want to try and defend these. If you do take these out, you will be rewarded 500 souls. Everybody on your team will be. They can't be denied. Those souls will just go instantly into your stockpile, and you'll also get an ability point as well. It's a small little detail, but yeah, it's something that you do get. So these are the shrines essentially. Now keep in mind that you won't be able to attack these until you've taken out the T3 guardians here. But let's move on to the final part. It's going to be the patron. So the patron is this bad boy or bad girl, depending on which side you're playing. Jeez, that was not what I intended to do. That is going to be essentially your last line of defense. The patron has an attack, unlike the shrines. The shrines don't have the ability to attack. The patron does have an attack. It can condemn you as an individual, and it will absolutely mess you up. The amount of times I've died because the patron condemned me, it has made me very, very mad. It's got a lot of health, and it also has 2 different phases. The first phase will be the flying phase, where it stays up in the sky. Normally it'll move from side to side, and then once it's taken enough damage, it will move down into the pit. You won't be able to damage the patron unless you're actually physically in the pit. So if you're playing against a McGinnis and they start putting turrets up here, these turrets will be able to attack you over here, but if they attack the patron, they won't be able to do any defense or any attack. It's the same concept as mid-balls. Oh, sorry, meatballs. Mid-boss. I got a little bit mixed up. Meatballs? Meat boss. Anyway, so you'll dive down into the pit, and that's obviously where you'll be doing the majority of the damage to your enemy patron, and you'll be at all costs looking to defend your own. There's a couple different ways that you can get in here. So let's take a look at reviewing that. So as an example, let's say you're on the defense, and let's say the enemy team is very well posted up. Now, if I was playing Dynamo, I might be playing this a little bit different. I might jump up here and then just quickly. So one of the things I always like to do is you jump up onto the zip line, but then immediately jump off, and that's going to give you a whole bunch of momentum. So you use crouch to jump off. So I would use crouch to jump off, and then do a jump, and then just pop my ulti, you know, and do a cool ulti like that. But maybe I'm playing 7, and if we think about it from the perspective of 7, right, I want to stay away from my enemies, and I want to kind of shoot them from behind and shoot them from the side. So if I come out here and start shooting, and so anyway, I started blasting, I'm going to get targeted down pretty quickly. So one of the things that I like to do as 7 is I play it a little bit more cheeky. I go through this little gate. Now, your enemy can't go through this, only you can go through this. I like to come up towards this top side. I like to run all the way out here, and then I like to come back in and then play from this angle out here. And then that way it gives you a lot more of an ability to escape. So that's one of the ways that I like to play whenever I'm defending my patron, is to come through there. Not a lot of people know about that. I remember the first time I discovered it, I was probably at like 140 hours, and I was like, hold on a minute, what the hell is this? You've also got this door that you're able to run through, which is where we saw the staircase leading to from here. You've got, you know, a couple boxes in here, probably not worth checking on a regular basis, but it is definitely there for you. So that is one thing. These are Veils, so if you've got Veil Walker, then that is going to work for you as well. And you've got a couple of little escape pods that you can come through up here. It can be tough sometimes if you don't have stamina, because let's use all of our stamina. So if we have no stamina, it can be difficult trying to get up here, because you're spamming jump and you just won't get up, and then you'll die and you'll be like, ah! So one of the things that you can do here, I'm not sure if this works, so let's give it a try. I'm just going to try and do a punch up here and see if that works. So we're going to jump and then punch at the top. Yeah, that doesn't work. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to use our wall jump here. So we talked about this a little bit earlier in the video. Essentially, I'm jumping and then I'm going to come up that way. I did actually use a bit of stamina then at the end. There we go. So we made it up with no stamina. So I don't think I talked about how to do a wall jump. So that's going to be awkward for you guys. So let me explain quickly. Sorry, it's at the end of the video. Essentially, we're using the opposite key that we would from the direction that we're going. What? Really? Okay. I'll go over here. Don't worry. So let's use all of our stamina. So if I'm going into this wall here, I'm going in like a left direction, and I want to bounce off that wall right. So I'm going to jump into the wall, hold my right arrow key, and then I'm going to. It takes a bit of practice, and then I'm going. There we go. And I'm going to press jump while I'm holding down the right arrow key. So in the direction I want to go, I'm going to push that arrow key, and I'm going to jump at the same time. Normally, what you want to do is, like, when you jump up against a wall, like there's quite a bit of leeway that you've got in that you jump up against that wall and you go up and then you're down, but you're against the wall. You don't want to pop it early, because if you do, you will do the double jump instead, and it doesn't have that same boink sound. So that's important to know. You kind of want to wait for you to be touching 100%, and then you'll be able to do it and combo it and get all nice and jiggy with it. Anyway, that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this look and this oversight at Deadlock. I don't know how long this video is going to end up being. At the moment, I'm just recording, and so that is it. Thank you for making it this far through the video. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you hit the like button, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. I've been Drongo. This has been your Deadlock. Thank you for watching.